The evolution of web security. Welcome to the channel. Please consider subscribing. I produce videos daily covering a wide variety of cloud topics with focus on networking. Also, hit the bell icon to get notified of new videos. Today, we're taking a comprehensive deep dive into the evolution of web security by comparing TLS 1.2 and TLS 1.3. While TLS 1.2 was the workhorse of the internet for a decade, TLS 1.3 represents a massive leap forward in both security and performance. We will explore the critical differences in how they handle key exchanges, derive keys, and the protocols they support, and see why TLS 1.3 is the new gold standard for a faster, safer web. The goal of TLS. Before we dive into the differences, let's quickly recap the goal of TLS. It's designed to provide three core security properties for any communication over a network. First, confidentiality, ensuring that no one can eavesdrop on the content of the messages. Second, integrity, ensuring that messages cannot be tampered with in transit without being detected. And third, authentication, proving that the server you are talking to is who it claims to be. The way these goals are achieved changed significantly between versions 1.2 and 1.3. Why was an upgrade needed? TLS 1.2 was a solid protocol, but its decade-long tenure exposed weaknesses that attackers learned to exploit. Its main problem was its immense flexibility and complexity. It supported a huge menu of cryptographic algorithms, many of which were old, weak, or improperly designed. This complexity led to a series of high-profile, named vulnerabilities like Poodle, Beast, and Logjam. These weren't breaks in the core idea of TLS, but rather attacks on its weaker, legacy components. The primary motivation for TLS 1.3 was to eliminate this legacy baggage and build a protocol that was secure by default. The three pillars of change. The differences between TLS 1.2 and TLS 1.3 can be broken down into three main categories. The first and most important is the key exchange, which is the process of establishing a shared secret, and the related concept of forward secrecy. The second is the handshake process itself, focusing on speed and privacy. The third is the list of supported protocols, or cipher suites, which defines the specific cryptographic algorithms that are allowed. In all three areas, TLS 1.3 made significant changes to be faster, simpler, and stronger. The key exchange. Let's start with the most critical part, the key exchange. The goal is for the client and server to agree on a shared secret to encrypt their session. The most important security property of a modern key exchange is Perfect Forward Secrecy, or PFS. This ensures that a compromise of a server's long-term key doesn't allow an attacker to decrypt past, recorded sessions. TLS 1.2's approach to this was flexible, but dangerously so. TLS 1.3's approach is rigid and secure by default. TLS 1.2 Key Exchange, a risky menu. The biggest characteristic of 1.2 is that it offered a huge menu of options, some good and some bad. It supported modern, secure methods like ephemeral elliptic curve Diffie-Hellman, ECDHE, which provides PFS. However, it also supported older, insecure methods, most notably the static RSA key exchange. Because these were options, a server could be misconfigured to use a weak method. The philosophy was one of flexibility, but this flexibility came at the cost of complexity and a larger attack surface. The flaw of static RSA in TLS 1.2. The static RSA key exchange was the most significant weakness in TLS 1.2. In this mode, the client would simply encrypt a session secret with the server's long-term public key. This meant that if an attacker ever stole the server's long-term private key, they could go back and decrypt every single past session they had recorded. It offered absolutely no perfect forward secrecy. While secure ephemeral modes were available, the fact that this was even an option was a major security risk. The TLS 1.3 revolution. Ephemeral only. TLS 1.3 completely revolutionized the key exchange by adopting a simple philosophy: less is more. It threw out all the old, insecure options. The static RSA key exchange is completely gone. In fact, all static key exchanges are gone. The only key exchange mechanism allowed in TLS 1.3 is ephemeral Diffie-Hellman, almost always using elliptic curves. ECDHE. This single change means that perfect forward secrecy is now mandatory, not an optional feature. Every TLS 1.3 connection is automatically protected against record now, decrypt later attacks. The handshake process. The second major area of improvement is the handshake process itself. TLS 1.2 had a chatty handshake that required multiple back and forths before any data could be encrypted. TLS 1.3 redesigned the flow from the ground up to be faster and also to encrypt more of the handshake, improving privacy. Handshake speed. The round-trip difference. This is one of the most celebrated improvements. A typical TLS 1.2 handshake required 2 full round trips between the client and server before the first encrypted data could be sent. TLS 1.3 redesigned the handshake to be much more efficient. The client now proactively sends its key share, its ephemeral public key, in the very first message. This allows the server to compute the shared secret immediately and start encrypting on its first reply. This cuts the handshake time in half, from 2 round trips down to just 1. Visualizing the handshakes. This sequence diagram shows the difference in flow. On the left, the TLS 1.2 handshake involves a client hello, a server hello, and then a second back and forth for the client key exchange. On the right, the TLS 1.3 handshake is much more compact. The client sends its key share in the first message. The server can then send its key share, certificate, and a finished message all in one go, completing the handshake in a single round trip. Zero round trip, zero RTT resumption. TLS 1.3 introduces another groundbreaking feature called zero round trip, or zero RTT on a subsequent connection to a server you have already visited. The client can actually send encrypted application data along with its very first message. This is possible because the server gave the client a special session ticket during their first visit. The client uses this ticket to encrypt the initial data. This allows for an almost instantaneous resumption of a secure session. However, it is important to note that zero RTT data does not have the same forward secrecy guarantees and must be used carefully by applications to avoid replay attacks. Handshake encryption and privacy. Another major improvement in TLS 1.3 is privacy. In TLS 1.2, a lot of the handshake, including the server certificate, was sent in plaintext. This meant an eavesdropper on the network could see which website you were visiting. TLS 1.3 encrypts the handshake much earlier in the process. After the initial messages, almost everything, including the server certificate, is encrypted. This makes it much harder for passive eavesdroppers to track user browsing habits. Supported protocols. The final area of difference is the list of supported algorithms, or cipher suites. TLS 1.2 had a massive and confusing list of options, which was a primary source of vulnerabilities. TLS 1.3 performed a radical cleanup, removing everything that wasn't considered state-of-the-art. The cipher suite jungle of TLS 1.2. TLS 1.2 had over 300 defined cipher suites. Its complexity made configuration difficult and error-prone. It was easy for a system administrator to accidentally enable a weak or broken cipher suite. This included obsolete ciphers like RC4 and 3DES, weak hash functions like MD5 and SHA1, and block cipher modes like CBC, which were vulnerable to a class of attacks known as padding oracle attacks, for example, Poodle and Beast. Breaking down a TLS 1.2 cipher suite. Let's break down a typical TLS 1.2 cipher suite name. TLS ECDHERSA with AES 128 GCM SHA 256. This long string tells us everything. ECDHE is the key exchange, meaning it is ephemeral and has forward secrecy. RSA is the authentication method, meaning the server uses an RSA certificate to sign the handshake. AES 128 GCM is the bulk encryption cipher, a modern and secure AEAD, and SHA 256 is the hash function used for the internal PRF. Every single one of these components had to be negotiated and specified in the name. The walled garden of TLS 1.3. TLS 1.3 radically simplified this. It removed all obsolete and insecure algorithms. The negotiation was also simplified. The key exchange and signature are handled separately from the bulk cipher. As a result, instead of over 300 complex options, there are now only 5 standard, highly secure cipher suites to choose from. It is a walled garden where every choice is a good one. The 5 TLS 1.3 cipher suites. These are the only 5 standard cipher suites in the TLS 1.3 specification. Notice how much simpler the names are. For example, TLS AES 256 GCM SHA 384. This only specifies 2 things. The AEAD cipher for bulk encryption, AES 256 GCM, and the hash function to be used with HKDF for key derivation, SHA 384. The key exchange is assumed to be ECDHE and is handled separately. This massive reduction in complexity makes it much harder to misconfigure a server in an insecure way. Mandatory AEAD ciphers. A crucial part of the TLS 1.3 cleanup is the mandatory use of AEAD ciphers. AEAD stands for Authenticated Encryption with Associated Data. These are modern ciphers like AES GCM and ChaCha 20 Poly 1305 that combine encryption and integrity protection into a single, integrated step. This avoids the pitfalls of the older encrypt then MAC approach used with CBC mode, which was the source of many real-world attacks. In TLS 1.3, you are guaranteed to be using a state-of-the-art encryption mode. Key derivation. From PRF to HKDF. The final piece of the puzzle is how the session keys are derived from the shared secret. TLS 1.2 used a custom function called the PRF. TLS 1.3 switched to the modern, industry-standard HKDF, which stands for HMAC-based key derivation function. HKDF is designed to be more robust and provides stronger cryptographic guarantees. HKDF. The extract and expand model. HKDF works in a 2-step process. First, the extract step takes the shared secret from the Diffie-Hellman exchange, which might not be perfectly uniform, and concentrates its entropy into a strong, fixed-length pseudorandom key. Then, the expand step uses this key to generate as many different secret keys as are needed for the session. One for client-to-server traffic, one for server-to-client traffic, one for exporting, and others. This clear separation ensures that all the final keys are cryptographically independent, which is a significant security improvement. Summary of key differences. This table summarizes the core differences. The key exchange in TLS 1.2 was flexible but allowed for insecure options, while in 1.3 it is strictly ephemeral, mandating forward secrecy. The handshake has been cut from 2 round trips to 1. The key derivation has moved from a custom PRF to the standard HKDF, and the cipher suite list has been drastically cut down from over 300 to just 5 hardened, modern options. Every change was made in the service of better security and better performance. Why did we need TLS 1.3? So why was this upgrade so critical? TLS 1.2, while a solid protocol, was a product of its time. Its complexity was a major source of vulnerabilities. The long list of supported algorithms and options meant that a single misconfiguration could expose users to attacks like Poodle, Logjam, or Freak. It also lacked mandatory forward secrecy. TLS 1.3 was a direct response to these issues. It was designed to be secure by default, removing the legacy baggage and making it much harder for developers and administrators to shoot themselves in the foot. Conclusion: faster, simpler, stronger. The evolution from TLS 1.2 to TLS 1.3 is a perfect case study in how security protocols mature. The designers of 1.3 took a decade of lessons learned from the real-world attacks against 1.2 and rebuilt the protocol from the ground up with three goals in mind: make it faster, make it simpler, and make it stronger. By mandating forward secrecy, simplifying the handshake, and removing all legacy crypto, they succeeded on all three fronts, creating a new standard that will protect the web for the next decade and beyond. Final thoughts. The transition from TLS 1.2 to 1.3 is a powerful reminder that security is a process of continuous improvement. What was considered secure yesterday may not be secure tomorrow. By embracing modern cryptographic principles like mandatory forward secrecy and authenticated encryption, and by ruthlessly simplifying the protocol to reduce the chance of human error, TLS 1.3 provides a much more robust foundation for a secure and private internet. Thank you for your attendance. Please consider subscribing to the channel.